So first of all, welcome. Great to see everyone out. What we're going to do here this evening, our six-man mechanics have changed in a couple of key areas. And so what I'm going to do, we're going to start by going through some of the very basics, just very lightly, just to make sure our terminology is all correct for when we're talking later on. And then after that, I'm just going to hit not the highlights, but the significant changes along the way. And in doing so, we'll get into some discussion, I'm sure, that'll cover a myriad of things, but that's the way I plan on doing it. And hopefully we'll hit all the spots that we need to hit. So the first thing I want to explain, in one of those emails, there were two attachments. And this is a little bit of a complex way of doing things. I'll put it that way to make it nicely. But what the Football Canada has done with these documents, or actually this CFOA, isn't it? Or no, this is a Football Canada document, our six-man. Anyway,
No.
Is it CFOA?
Yes.
CFOA.
Oh, okay. I'm mistaken again. Anyway, what they've done is they've done what they consider elite football, and that is the 6 and 7 person crews. Okay. So they've done one document, which is a generic document that covers a lot of the topics that are applicable to both crew sizes. And then they've published another document, one for 6 and one for 7, which talks about the specifics of that size of crew. Okay, so that's the reason you receive two documents. They work hand in hand. Not all your answers are in one or the other. It's a combination thereof. You'll see in one document, it relates to the other and vice versa. So that's the way it is set up now. Tad bit confusing, but that's a brief outline of what's going on with that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share the screen with you here now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down through as we go along here. I'm in the 6-person mechanic manual. Okay. At one point in time, I'm going to flip over to our generic one and show you a couple pages there. And then we'll be back to the 6-person mechanics. That's the gist of what we're going to be talking about tonight. So bear with my incompetence here and I'll see how I make out. What do you guys see now?
Chapter 2, Field Mechanics.
This technology stuff's a breeze. Okay, so this is very early into it. And the reason I brought this up, the names of the positions within the crew have changed a little bit, just so we know what we're talking about as we go along. Referee and umpire, no different than it was in the past. Down judge, we used to know that person as the head linesman. Nothing else has changed, just the name. Line judge was always there. Back judge was always there. Field judge is new. We used to know the field judge as being the back umpire. Okay. So when we're on the field, the down judge and the back judge, or the down judge and the field judge are on the same side of the field, and the back judge and the line judge work together. Okay. Now, if we go down here just a little farther, here's one little significant change in these mechanics as to what we had in the past. And you can see my cursor, I'm assuming. Do you see the cursor moving? Okay. Right in here, this little section here. In the past, we've always put the emphasis on the referee is responsible for screen pass, whether it was a screen or forward. That has changed. The hold official is responsible for whether a forward pass or a screen pass. Or I shouldn't say screen pass. It's the difference here is it's minor, but it's how they expect that official to hold that until that has been recognized. They also talk about him holding that line. He's ruling on the quarterback if he clears the line of scrimmage and then throws a pass. That always was the responsibility of the referee to try to get up there and see that. Well, we have a guy that's on the line of scrimmage. He's always looking through on that. That has shifted to that person. Now, flip ahead here a little bit. Oh, one other thing I should have mentioned. In the past, we always talked about our held official and our free official. Well, it's similar now. Now it's called our hold official and our moving official. So on the charts, you'll see different designations as opposed to free and held. It's moving and hold, I guess. Now we'll scroll down here. Okay. I want to point out one thing here. You'll see two charts throughout this document. Anytime you see a chart, almost always there's going to be two of them. The difference is one is for amateur football, one is for CFL football. You can see right underneath each chart there. The CFL is on the right-hand side of the screen and ours is on the left side. They do some things a little bit different, and this document is what they use when they start a game and they lose an official. These are the mechanics they use as well. So this document works with them in conjunction with that as well. So if we look at the one on the left here, this is your typical setup for scrimmage play. The designations there, I'll just go through them to make sure we're all on the same page. R and U, we know that's the referee and umpire. Okay, H is the hold official, as I talked about just a moment ago. M is the moving official. And then the two guys that are down deep, there's the outside deep official, inside deep official. One thing I will mention at this point, just as a reference, you'll see the referee in this depiction is on the short side of the field and the umpire is on the wide side of the field, okay? What they are depicting here, because these mechanics call for the referee to be on the throwing arm of the quarterback, okay? So they're depicting a right-handed quarterback here. The reason I bring this up, here in New Brunswick, we have not gone in that direction yet. That is something that would need to be discussed between the referee and the umpire because it affects no one else in the crew. So if the referee wants to continue working on the wide side of the field and the umpire work on the narrow side, it doesn't affect the rest of the crew. So that's something to be discussed in the dressing room to make sure you're on the same page with that. If you're going to go on the quarterback's arm, I would highly suggest you ask your coach, do you have a right-handed or left-handed quarterback before the game starts so you're not trying to figure it out when he comes out onto the field. Okay, so if we scroll down here just a little further. This here just shows your typical setup and who's responsible for who in the line of scrimmage. The referee is going to take his side of the line. The umpire will take his side of the line. They each have an eye on the center. Okay, that's nothing new.
Andrew, can I dive in there for a minute?
Certainly.
Just with respect to the umpire, it puts the umpire between the two tackles. Before, we technically didn't have the freedom to go that far to the other side. But if you're uncomfortable on the side of the field you're on, you can sort of move on over as far as the tackle, but you still got to keep an eye on your lineman on the opposite side of the referee.
Right. Yeah. Yes, this, I guess I should have mentioned that. This is the initial setup and initial responsibilities. Once the play gets going, the referee's attention is going to focus a little bit broader, as will the umpire's focus go a little bit broader on the line itself. Okay. This is at the snap of the ball. This is who you're watching. And what Jim is talking about is the fact that you have to be able to broaden out your perspective as the play develops. And each individual will have their own ideas of how to do that position wise to get themselves their best vantage point. Okay, we're going to skip down through.
Oh, Andrew, just quickly back on that chart, the depth of the umpire, it looks like it's around 12 yards.
Yeah.
Is that?
It calls for that right back.
Right there. Yeah.
It says 8 to 12.
Yeah, 8 to 12 there.
Yeah,
Okay.
before we used to have 8 to 10, but it says 8 to 12.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
and a lot of that, again, depends on comfortability.
Exactly.
That the key point is to be comfortable to be in there. You'll soon get uncomfortable if you're going to get run over. And so what I mean by being comfortable is you'll find a spot that works for you so that you can see what's coming at you and what's not coming at you.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now we're right down to, oops, I just went past it. Okay. Plays from scrimmage. So this is just the generic setup again, okay? And it talks about, as you'll see here, this is what I was talking about before. Content for this section is covered in the General Mechanics Manual. That's the other document I was talking about that works for both 6 and 7 person mechanics, okay? So what we're going to look at here, because this has changed a little bit. In a 6-person system, everyone has receivers to watch. I shouldn't say everyone. All of the receivers have people watching them coming off the ball, off the snap of the ball. And that has changed a little bit. And that's what we're going to talk about here, okay? We'll see some charts here in just a minute. So the hold official, okay? So the hold official is the line of scrimmage official on the short side of the field, okay? So they are responsible for the inside receiver on their side of the line, okay? And then we'll talk a little bit about the specifics, what they're watching for in just a moment. The moving official is going to be the line of scrimmage guy on the wide side of the field. He's responsible for the outside receiver on his side. Okay. The outside deep official, he will be matched up with the hold official because he's going to be on the short side of the field. So he's going to be outside on the sideline. He's responsible for the outside receivers. Now, on their side of the ball, the hold official and the outside deep have all the receivers, and the hold official only has one. So the deep guy has, there could be as many as 3 other guys over there. Usually it's just 2, but who knows? Inside deep, responsible for the inside receivers. And it could be 2 or 3 or 1. Now, what we're talking about when we say they have responsibility, you are watching that receiver as the ball snaps until they get 7, 8, maybe even 10 yards downfield. What you're watching for is to make sure they're not getting interfered with illegally, that they can get away clean and all this and that. And then everything moves into zone coverage, okay? Because typically, if we're going to have illegal contact on a receiver, it's going to happen quite often within this area. And so that's why everyone has eyes on a particular receiver, and each receiver is to be followed down the field a little bit, and then it goes to zone coverage.
Andrew, just before you leave, one of the points that they're adding to this also is, if you look through there, they talk about until I clear contact or whatever, if the receiver that you're responsible for continues to be threatened, meaning that he has somebody covering him and he's a potential receiver, he's not stopped and just standing around, don't give up on them too quick. That's sort of the guide that they're giving now. Don't give up on your receiver too quick, as long as they are still being threatened by an opponent.
So that could go, what Al's alluding to, that could go downfield a little farther than what I'm talking about. Typically, things clean up 8 to 10 yards because things start to disperse then and things shift, patterns look different and everything else. Thank you, Al. Now, if we go to this picture here, okay? So what this shows is the general zone of coverage each of the 4 officials have. So this just gives you an idea so you have an understanding of the rationale behind who's got who. The moving official has the blue area, okay? So he has well down the field. He has that outside guy. On the other side of the field, the outside deep guy is the guy that has the downfield depth. So he has the outside guys, okay? So that's why it flips from one side to the other, who has the inside guys as far as the line of scrimmage or the deep officials, and who has the outside guys. So just keep in mind, if you're moving downfield, the guy you're watching is the guy out closest to you. Or if you're on the held side of it and you're the outside deep guy, it will be more than one guy potentially, but the guys that are out next to the sideline. Okay. Now, another thing to keep in mind here. This goes, like I said, 7, 8, 10 yards, and then we're going into zones. These zones are not cut in stone, as you might guess. They are designed to give you an idea of what you are really responsible for geographically wise, but we're always looking through to be able to support and help whoever we may be able to help with as well. Now, one other thing which can be a little confusing. The receivers, I'm not going to say that just yet because I can show you on a picture easier. I'll only have myself confused if I go into that now. So if we skip down here just a little further, like I said, I'm skipping over some stuff that hasn't changed. And so as we get into discussions here, if we come back to something, we can look harder at that stuff. Okay. Now, am I on the right page here? Not quite. Here we go. Here's where I want to be. So I'll go back a step. We're still in the plays from scrimmage, okay? We're talking about general scrimmage plays. Nothing real specific yet, just your general scrimmage play. And then this one gets into running. Okay, so here's something that's a little bit different as well. Under hold official, right up here. Primary responsibility for, okay, we already talked about this. Passer crossing the line of scrimmage. What they're talking about, quarterback still has the ball, scrambling. He's getting up close to the line of scrimmage and then he throws a pass, okay? It is the hold official who's going to determine if that was a legal pass or not. It is a legal pass if any part of that quarterback or that passer is behind the line of scrimmage. He can have the majority of himself or herself over the line of scrimmage. As long as they have a foot dragging behind them or something, they are still considered good for this rule. 2 other primary responsibilities. Screen passes, which is no change. That's always been the case. And this next one is a difference too. Laterals. Okay. It says the referee and umpire may be able to provide assistance But primarily, the held official will be ruling on a lateral pass if it's that close. Any questions on that? Because that is a change.
So that's on both sides of the field?
Well, well, yes, whoever the hold official is. So if there's a receiver that draws the moving receiver downfield, he won't be of any assistance. If there's a running play or a sweep or whatever that comes out towards the moving official side, he may stay still anyway and be there to see if there is, if it turns out to be a lateral or not. Depends upon the situation of where he is or where they are not. But the hold official has primary responsibility on that simply because they will be on the line of scrimmage until the ball crosses it. Okay, now this is what we're going to talk about here now, down towards the bottom. The initial assignment of pass receivers, okay? So 2 or 3 pages back, I talked about which receiver is covered by which official, okay? Now, receivers don't just come up to the line of scrimmage and stand still until the ball snapped. You'll have movement. It is significant to understand that the receivers are identified by their position, where they are, not when they line up, but where they are when the ball is snapped. So in other words, we have a slot back who may be set up behind the right tackle. We have a tight end on his side. The slot back goes in motion, comes way outside before the ball is snapped. Okay, he is now the outside receiver. He originally set up inside. He's now the outside receiver. And so the designation of what each receiver is not set until the ball is snapped. So here's an example of who has who for receivers, okay? So remember we talked about the hold official has the inside receiver on his side. That's depicted there with the H pointing to the kid in the backfield with the green halo around him. The moving receiver has the outside official or the outside receiver on his side, which is this guy. The outside deep guy has the outside receivers, be it by volume 1, 2, or 3, depends on how many's over there. And the inside deep guy has the inside receivers on the other side. So does that all make sense?
Just an easy way for line of scrimmage guys to remember it is just use high, H-I. If you're held or hold, I guess now you've got the inside guy. If you're the moving guy, it's Mo, M-O. If you're moving, you get the
Outside guy, yeah.
Yeah, high Mo.
So now we'll scroll down through here and there's going to be a few diagrams just to see different potential configurations. Okay, so here's one here. Now on this one, the hold official has a single receiver here. The outside deep only has one. Your moving official has the outside guy. Your inside deep has 2. Although they didn't designate this guy, unless he goes over here, he belongs to the inside deep guy. So he would have these 3 that he's monitoring. Just more illustrations of that. Same concept. There's 2 over here on this side, the 2 outside guys. to the outside deep guy. The inside deep guy has the inside receivers. These are all just different configurations that can take place. Now, I want to talk about this right here. Okay. So the reason I want to talk about that, it doesn't show it on these charts, but in some of our other or 7-person charts, they number the receivers. The number 1 receiver is the outside guy, and then they just go 2, 3, moving in towards the ball where it is at the snap. So in this situation here, these two are basically in line with each other this way. So in that situation, the outside guy is always deemed to be the guy that's ahead. So what I'm saying, if this square was just barely outside of him, he is still considered the number 1 receiver or the outside receiver. The guy that is behind is considered inside of him. Does that make sense? Did I make that clear? Because it can be a bit confusing.
Would you just say that the guy on the line of scrimmage would be the number 1 receiver in that position?
Yes. And what I'm getting at, Jeff, is even if this guy was lined up just a little bit outside of him, as long as they're almost in the straight line with each other, even the guy that's outside is considered inside of him because he's behind him.
Yeah. So the number 1 receiver would be on the line of scrimmage. That's what we
Correct.
take, right? Yeah. That's
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Unless you can see definite separation laterally with them. If they're stacked, the front guy is always outside of the guy that's behind you.
Okay. Got it.
And so these are just other ways of looking at things. Okay. See, now in this situation here, he's up on the line, but they're depicting a clear definition of one being outside of the other. So in that situation, he's still the outside guy, even though he is behind him. Okay, now. Okay, we've moved away from the passing game. Any questions on that? Okay. So now this section here is plays near the goal line going in. Okay, so once again, we have 2 charts here. This is the CFL one. In this situation, it's the same as ours, but keep that in mind. Anytime you see charts, always look for the one that says amateur, because that's us. So what this depicts is the referee still being on the quarterback's throwing arm. Okay? But the umpire who's moved to the wide side of the field. This happens when we get inside of the 15-yard line. The umpire goes to the wide side. So if, and this is an if, it depends on how people want to do this individually. If we are staying with the old way of doing it like we have here in the past, with the referee typically on the short side of the field, or typically on the wide side of the field, and the umpire typically on the short side of the field, when the umpire flips, our referee flips as well. It's not depicted here because they're using the quarterback's throwing arm as the criteria for the referee, just so you understand that chart. Now, the other thing that is significant about this chart, you'll notice the umpire is responsible, and we're just talking about the initial setup and at the snap of the ball, watching for procedure and things of that nature, the umpire is responsible for the center and the right side of the line of scrimmage, even though that's the side the referee is on. It is the umpire who watches his side of the line of scrimmage in all situations. So in most of our scenarios, our umpire and referee line up on opposite sides. In the event that does not happen for whatever reason, the umpire always watches his side of the line of the scrimmage. The referee takes the opposite side. Okay. Now, so keep in mind, this is talking about from the 15-yard line inward. Okay. So we're not in short yardage or anything yet. We're just encroaching upon the end zone. That's what's going on here. So just scroll down here a little bit. Referee and umpire talks about content in the general mechanics manual. That's the other document I talked about that you have as well. So in this situation, the sideline officials do things just a little bit different, okay? First of all, when on the short side, which is H on our chart, that's our hold officials on the short side. It says you're the hold official. And then it says declare by pointing downfield. That's incorrect. When you're the hold official, you point to your line, correct? Your line of scrimmage, right? So scratch that out in your document or change it if and when you do print one. And then it talks about you stay on the line of scrimmage till the ball crosses. So you're just the held official, okay? Same as any other play. And then it talks about move to the goal line with the ball and stay outside. And prepare to move to the goal line. If the play develops to the other side, you're just dragging behind it just a little bit, okay? So when you're the wide side official, you're obviously the moving official. That's when you point downfield. That's the old term that we used to say, you're free. That's when you're pointing downfield to signify that. Now, the moving official. We're talking about the moving official here now, okay? Once the ball gets down to the 5-yard line, at the snap of the ball, move to the goal line. The moving official, not the held official, moving official. And you don't sprint there, get there under control so you can still watch what's going on. Now, we talked earlier, the umpire has moved to the wide side of the field. Okay. So you're going to move to the goal line. You'll have it boxed in with him. You two will be looking across at each other. Then it talks about being able to move back the line of scrimmage if things take off and go in the other direction. Now, here's something else that we haven't always done here in our 6-person mechanics. And it works well, but the whole crew has to be tuned in to do this correctly. And it's this section right here, this 10-4-3, okay? It says, I'll just read this one. When the ball is scrimmaged from the 8-yard line in. So if we're set up either on the 8-yard line or in, the sideline official and their deep sideline partner will communicate who's responsible for goal line coverage. Okay. And I'll read this next section and then we'll talk a little bit about this specifically. If the outside deep official has initial position on the goal line, the sideline official has primary responsibility for spotting the ball up to the 1-yard line. Okay. So let's just talk about this in general a little bit. What's going on here is we are scrimmaging the ball now inside the 8-yard line. Okay. So we're getting close to the end zone. The goal line becomes a real big factor here now because we're only, 7-8 yards away. So what this is calling for is I'll go back a step because we didn't talk about this because this is no different than it has been before. Typically, your outside deep official is setting up 18 to 20 yards downfield. Okay? So as we encroach in on the goal line, the deep side, outside deep official should never go into the end zone on the setup until we get to this 8-yard line criteria we're talking about here. So if we're scrimmaging from the 10-yard line, the outside deep official should be standing at the pylon because that is the critical line at that point in time. So, scenario, quarterback takes a snap, drops back. It's a passing play. The tackles are all retreating. Receiver comes down the outside on the outside deep official side who set up at the pylon for the snap of the ball. He does not physically follow that receiver into the end zone until the ball is in the air. Okay? You follow him with your eyes because he is still your responsibility. You don't follow him with your feet until the ball is in the air. And then you react to it at that point in time. Reason being, you are the guy that's on the line, the goal line. If the play breaks down, turns into a running play, and we have a bang, bang play right at the goal line, you were supposed to be there. So that's why you do not let your receivers take you into the end zone until the ball is gone. So that's why they talk about the 8-yard line. So one of the terms that we often use, because we use this a lot in the 7-man mechanics, one of the terms we often use is 7 is heaven. And what that means is anytime we get inside of the 8-yard line, the deep guys release. And at that point in time, the line of scrimmage guys are responsible for the goal line. Up until then, it's the deep guys. How many people did I confuse? Well, that's good. So if we just hit a couple more points here, which is what I was alluding to, I'll just point them out here in the chart. This here is talking about that deep outside official not leaving until the ball takes him off of his position. Not his responsibility for players, but it's the ball that takes him off his position if he's set up at the pylon. Same idea if we're set up, let's say out at the 25-yard line of scrimmage. If you have a receiver that takes off coming down your side and he goes into the end zone, you don't. You stop at the goal line because that's the line you care about. Once the ball is in the air, then you react to what's going on at that point in time. And then down here at the bottom, it just reiterates what I was just talking about. You stay there until the ball takes you away. And you don't, when you're on the pylon, you don't move back toward the line of scrimmage either as a play is looking like it's going to go dead. You stay on that goal line. You are the keeper of that goal line. Okay, now I want to switch just for a moment to the other manual. And it should say 3rd down short yardage at the top of your screen now, does it?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is out of the generic manual, the other one I talked about. And this is talking about 3rd down and short yardage. So this is what we typically call our short yardage setup. Okay. So, and this is a little different than what we've done in the past. And that's the reason I'm bringing this up as well. So we'll get down here and look at these charts, and then we'll go into the details after that. Remember how I talked about they use the illustration of a right hand, left hand quarterback, okay? So this way they're flip-flopping here on this one, okay? This is for short yardage. The other charts that we were looking at were just when you were encroaching the end zone, so they weren't flipping, only the umpire was flipping there. The referee wasn't following him because of throwing arm. So that's something that needs to be talked between those two before each game, how they're going to deal with that. So in this situation, they do flip-flop whichever way it happens to work. Okay. The umpire has his side of the line. Now he's moved his position. Normally the umpire is setting up back here. He's come up closer to the line towards the outside of it now. Okay. Typically that's what we had our umpires do before. Here is the significant difference. We do not bring up the guy that used to be called our back umpire into a traditional umpire spot anymore. The two deep guys stay deep. They do not come up now. And this is talking about a play that's 3rd and 2 or less. Some crews may want to do it at 3 yards. That'll just depend on when you want to do this, at what criteria you decide to go short yardage setup. Okay. So when this takes place, deep guys stay deep. There's no one coming way up like we used to do. Now, this depicts how the referee is on one side because of the formation of a right-handed quarterback on left-handed quarterback. So if we talk about our umpire, this is what he's going to do. He's going to go slightly behind and outside the widest defensive player on that line. Okay. It says not closer than 2. Once again, individuals find their comfort zone. Make sure you have protection for yourself wherever you set up. Make sure the person you're using for protection knows you're there. Very important. Okay.
So Andrew,
Yep.
that seems to say that the umpire is always going to be on the wide side of the field. Yes. Which is not a change, but it would appear to maybe contradict the 2 previous diagrams.
Yes, I know. And I don't quite understand that because it talks about that. It says right here on the wide side of the field. And I didn't understand that either, Jim. That's the reason, that's the reason I pointed out different on the other ones and then showed it here, showing that they were showing it based on the quarterback. But it says right here in black and white on the wide side of the field. So I don't quite understand why that chart says what it, I couldn't make sense out of that either.
Can you just scroll back to the diagram there for a minute?
Because they're still talking about right hand, left hand formation.
Yeah, okay. Oh no, but they do
That
have
diagram-
they do have the umpire on the wide side.
I'm cluing in now. Yeah. Because this says sideline and they flip the sideline.
Yeah.
Well, why do they put left hand side of, left hand side of formation.
Yeah, he's on that side because the umpire's on the wide side.
Okay.
So he
My
stays on.
apologies, folks. When I saw
gets-
left hand and right hand, I thought they had it confused somehow and they were still talking about quarterback. My apologies. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, so
So,
referee
yes.
referee short side, umpire wide side.
Correct.
Okay.
So that is no change from what we have always done in that respect. The referee will be on the short side in these situations because the umpire goes to the wide side. And we set up on opposite sides for line coverage. Now, as I stated before, though, it is significant. No one from the backfield comes up. None of the deep guys come up. Okay. So what this is depicting here, the umpire out here, this is the actual sideline. So this would be the hold official. As the play develops, everything is boxed in between these two. And that's the dynamic that we're trying to set up here.
Let me be the devil's advocate.
Go ahead.
Why in goal line is the positioning of the referee and umpire different?
Because just a moment now, this is goal line as well. Or
No.
potentially goal line. The other is not, what we were talking about before, Al, is not goal line. We're talking about in close to the end zone.
Yeah.
When we talk about goal line and short yardage, we talk about those as being one and the same, do we not?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the difference, because the other formation we were talking about begins when we get at the 15-yard line. Once we get down around the 2 or 3, it's going to revert to this.
Yeah.
In fact, with the sideline guys, it changes just a little bit at the 5-yard line because they move to the goal line. Okay?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So once again, it's the umpire that's really driving this because the referee shifts his side simply because the umpire has gone to the wide side. Once again, the umpire always takes care of his side of the line of scrimmage. The referee does the opposite side of the umpire. It's not the reverse of that. So it's the umpire that's driving this. Okay, now, where am I here? Don't want to get lost. I think is there anything else I wanted to cover on that particular thing? No, okay. So that is our short yardage. So, and like I said, it's wherever the crew feels comfortable with that. Certainly at 2, some crews like doing it at 3. Once again, that's a pregame chat. So I'm going to go back over to our 6-man chart or 6-man mechanics here again now. And we are, where am I here? Got to find the right spot. Page do I want to be on? Okay, now I know where I'm going. Here we are here. 3rd down in gambling situations, okay? So what we're calling 3rd down in gambling is a team is attempting to go for it on 3rd down. Now, 3rd and short, we just talked about that, okay? We're talking, in this situation, let's say we're talking is 3rd and 10, late in the half or late in the game, and a team needs to score. So what we're going to do in this situation is very similar to what we talked about just a few minutes ago. We're going to set up so that we treat the 1st down marker just like the goal line when we're getting in close to the end zone. So if you can envision we're 3rd and 10, the outside deep guy, where is he going to line up? If we're at the 10-yard line going into the end zone, where would he line up? You're muted, Jeff.
Sorry, was it the goal? It's the goal line, so it would be the 1st down line.
Correct. Okay. So the outside deep guy is going to line up on the 1st down stick. Okay. because that's the important line once again. And we're going to treat that exactly the same as the goal line. You do not leave there until not a player takes you away from there, until the ball takes you away from there. It has to be the ball that moves you, not the player. So we're going to treat that third down and long just like we're encroaching on the end zone. And so the same criteria of 8 yards or less comes into play. So once we get down to 7 yards to go, the deep outside guy will set up normal downfield, and the held official will be responsible. The held and moving official will be responsible for the first down marker. Okay, that's what it's talking about here. So significant here is sideline officials is talking about the hold official. You still have to hold that line until the ball crosses. Okay. But if the play is on your side and there's a pass on your side, 5-6 yards downfield and they need 7 to gain it. Well, as soon as that pass is in the air, you've got to be on your horse and going, because you need to be down there at the first down marker in case he gets tackled right there. Okay. Moving official. It says, be prepared to move downfield after the snap and for marking forward progress at the first down marker. So that's where you're going to stop. Okay. The moving official, you're going to stop at that first down marker until the ball takes you away from there. Not your receiver that you're covering, but the ball. And the deep outside official, okay? It said there, start the forward picket when it's 8 or more. And that's what we talked about. Once it becomes less than 8, then it goes to the line of scrimmage guy. Okay, so does that all make sense? Now, I'll tell you right now, this is going to get missed at times. So this is where crew communication becomes vital, because there may only be one person on the crew that picks up on what the scenario of this particular play is. So make sure you let other people know, and then people can set up accordingly as they should. Okay. But you have to communicate this, because this does not happen very often. And when it does, it takes you out of your normal routine. So you have to recognize it and then vocalize to your partners what's going on, where we're setting up, who has what. Any questions on that? Okay, kickoffs are a little bit different with this. So the right-hand side is for the CFL. It looks very similar to ours, but disregard that. So we're over here again. So what do we see that's different?
Nobody's in the middle of the field.
No one's in the middle, first of all. And these two dudes, sideline officials, they're about 15, 20 yards downfield. Referee is on the kickoff line. Umpire is on the 10-yard restraining line. Okay. Concept here being, on the vast majority of our kickoffs, this is where stuff happens. So we're setting up these 4 guys down there in position rather than expecting the sideline guys to leave from here to get down there. We're giving them a head start per se. They're in a better spot to see how these guys come off the line, to see if they get interfered with. And they're not in a position that they have to physically move so much, so they can give better concentration to this, better focus to this. Okay. So this is significantly different. These guys will move a little bit after the ball is kicked, but not much. Depend upon how deep the kick goes. Because they will want to stay 15 to 20 yards ahead of the return as best able. Okay? So this is a little bit of a change. Now, here's a couple of charts, and we'll look at the top one first that just illustrate everyone's movement after the ball is kicked. Okay? So what you have here, I'll just tell you what everything represents, and then you can understand it better. This red dotted line is the trajectory of the ball. So the ball is kicked from here to this point. This green diamond is the return man. The red arrow shows him coming up to get the ball. The deep official set up in these positions. The blue line shows their movement. Sideline here shows their movement. Sideline, there's no movement. Umpire movement, referee movement. The black dotted lines show their focus, where they are looking. Okay? And you'll notice there's a bunch of different bubbles in there, okay? So your red bubble is what your referee is looking at. He's looking in that area, back behind everything. Okay? The umpire is trying to look down in just a little bit deeper. He's trying to see the second wave of guys trying to get at the ball carrier. The first wave is being monitored by three guys, the two guys on the sideline and the deep outside of, or the other outside official on your left. And the official who has responsibility for the ball, his is the bright blue color area. That's the zone he's looking in. Okay, so does all that make sense? The movement and the zones they're looking into.
Andrew, the diagram doesn't fully do justice to what the directions are for the referee and umpire. So the referee and umpire, if the ball is kicked to your sideline, you stay on the sideline. If the ball is kicked to the far sideline, you move into the center of the field.
Correct.
That's new from this year.
Correct. And actually it's written right here.
Right in there. Yeah,
It is not depicted correctly here because it shows the referee coming in
correct. Yeah.
and it shows the umpire coming in. The written word is different than what the chart shows in this situation. And so here's a ball kicked to the referee's side, and it's just different guys moving in different directions. The same idea. Everyone's looking into their same zones. The referee's looking into this red area. The umpire's looking into this green. Oh no, I got it backwards because it's on his side of the field. The referee's looking into this second wave because it's on his side of the field. The umpire's watching everything in behind. And your first wave is being watched by your downfield guys and your sideline guys. So back to what Al was addressing is talked about right here, okay?
The plan is that you have three officials looking in from the sideline and three officials who have moved onto the field some on each side. So no matter what side of the ball's kicked to, you have three officials coming up one sideline and the other three have moved into the center. So you have the ball play all boxed in.
Yeah. So back to what Al was alluding to. Okay. Initially, the referee is going to rule on offside on the kicking team. The umpire is going to be 10 yards down, so he's going to rule on whether the ball went 10 yards before it was touched, legally touched. Okay. Now, talks about after the kick. So for the referee, ball kicked to the far side of the field. After the kick, move into the middle of the field. Responsible for the second wave. Okay? Ball kicked to your side of the field. Stay on the sideline. And so the reverse is true for the umpire. If the ball is kicked to the umpire's side of the field, stay on the sideline. If it's kicked across, move in. Now, here we're talking about the deep officials, okay? You're going to be a little bit outside. If you remember where they set up, they weren't right on the sideline, but they were out close to it, okay? Now it talks about the same concept here. After the kick, if it's kicked to the far side of the field, move into the middle of the field. Responsible for the first threat on the ball carrier from your side. Okay. If it's kicked to your side, you're responsible for the ball carrier. Okay. You're going to move to the sideline. If you're not already there, if that ball is getting over close to you, get out of bounds, get to the sideline. Just make sure you're maintaining coverage of your area, but get out a little bit if you need to. Also, keep in mind, if the ball is kicked out of bounds on your side, you need to be there to see that it touched the sideline or something. So step out of bounds. Any questions there? Okay, now we talked about normal kickoffs. Now we have late in the game, kicking team needs to keep the ball. So here's our short kickoff alignment. And it's different than what we used to do in the past. Okay, these four are all the same. Umpire, opposite referee, 2 line of scrimmage guys, 10 yards down the field. They have brought up the deep guys. Okay, both of them. So the significance of this is if the ball is kicked deep, then you guys just retreat and get back here and set up. You'll have time because the ball is going up in the air. So you'll have time to get back there. Okay. They set up this way because if the kicking team doesn't plan on just getting possession of the ball here, sometimes they just chip it up and look for a play in this area. And that way the deep officials are up in play, in position when we start. So that is a different dynamic than what we were accustomed to as far as our arrangement or our alignment on the field for those. So I'll ask you this question. Umpire and referee, what are their responsibilities at the kick? Feel free, anyone.
One's onside.
Okay, make sure the kicking team is onside. Okay, so after the ball is kicked, what's their responsibility?
Untacked.
Correct. Illegal contact on the receiving team. So the 2 line of scrimmage guys, before the ball is kicked, same idea, make sure that the receiving team is onside. And then after the ball is kicked, what's their responsibility?
Make sure it goes 10 yards.
10 yards and one more thing.
Same thing. Got to make sure that everyone's doing everything legally.
Yeah, there's one other thing.
First touched.
First touch.
First touch or
I was
possession.
gonna say she bought the phone case, but I
Okay.
have one to make it.
First touch and possession.
Poster.
So your deep guys, if the ball is right here in this area, the deep guys will support both sides of that. They will support, help if it's a first touch thing or a last touch thing. And they can also see, because they're going to have a wider perspective, they can also see if someone from the kicking team comes down and clears out some receiving players as well. So they're in a support position if the ball is kicked right to the side or right to the 10-yard line. And of course, if it's kicked up and over, then it's a dual responsibility between them in regards to possession or last touch going out of bounds. Okay, punts. Now here's a considerable change from what we've done in the past. So you'll notice this alignment looks very similar to a scrimmage play because it is the exact same as a scrimmage play. It might be, well, it might be a little bit different, but slightly.
Different for the umpire.
Well, it is. I wasn't even thinking of him. I never think of umpires anyway. But yes, they depict the umpire here going into the backfield. Okay. We'll talk about that in a minute because that is significant as well. But I was thinking of the other five, Jim. Imagine you thinking about the umpire.
Imagine.
So, so the other significant change here is these two, we still have an inside deep guy and an outside deep guy. A couple of years ago, when we did a 6-person crew, we had 2 guys out here. So the inside guy stays inside, which creates a little different dynamic. Now, so let's go back to the beginning. So we see now the difference in the alignment. So now let's go back and we'll take this right from the snap and go through and talk about responsibilities and whatnot. Okay. So pre-setup, we get our 5 interior linemen in here. Okay. We got our ends and then identify, of course, who our punter is going to be. Now, on the snap of the ball, okay, ball comes back. What other things, it's not depicted here. What other things do we potentially have to watch for in a punting situation?
Fake play, run.
What's that?
The fake play, like they're faking the kick, they're gonna run it.
Okay, yeah, let's presume for this discussion that they are going to punt the ball.
Inside players.
Onside players. There are none depicted here. But with the referee and the umpire back here, it makes it easier for coverage of that. Now, the way this works, you can see my cursor, can you not? Okay. So if we have an onside player right here where my cursor is just outside of the umpire, it is the referee's responsibility to see if he is onside when the ball is kicked. If you have an onside guy out here, it is the umpire's responsibility to see if he is onside when the ball is kicked.
Wait, when did Diana?
Okay. The thought being is you watch who is in front of you. And so the referee's looking in this direction, umpire's looking in this direction. So anyone out here, the umpire will determine if they were onside or not. Anyone out here, the referee will in this configuration. Okay. So referee and umpire are both watching the line of scrimmage. Once the ball is snapped, they're going to watch it just a little bit to make sure there's no real quick holds or whatnot. Ball gets back to the punter as he is getting ready to kick the ball. These guys will take a peek at their onside guy that they looked at before the ball was snapped, so they know if they have someone to watch or not. Okay? Your two held officials or your two line of scrimmage officials are staying on the line until the ball is kicked across the line. And so they'll be monitoring the action in here as well. Your outside deep guy and your inside deep guy, they're monitoring the cover guys trying to get downfield, trying to get off the line. So that's what's happening right at the snap and right at the initial kick of the ball. Now, ball is in the air and going. So our two line of scrimmage guys at this time will start to move downfield, and they will be monitoring blocking as per norm. What is different here, by virtue of having an inside deep guy, that individual is covering more of the field. Now, as stated in the mechanics here, I'm not going to scroll down, just so I'll let you look at the diagram as I talk. As depicted, the blue zone is the inside deep guy, and what they have gone by hash marks to his sideline. And so the outside deep guy has sideline into hash marks. Okay? So if the ball is kicked in this area, the inside deep guy has the ball coverage, the no yard zone. The outside guy will be looking in here for blocking. If it was kicked out here, the outside deep guy will have the no yard zone and ball possession. The inside deep guy will be looking up into here for blocking. Now, in the past, we always ruled that the back umpire was in charge down there. He would, once he saw the ball go in the air off the foot, he would determine if he's going to take blocking or possession and signal accordingly. These mechanics do not say that. These mechanics just draw it up and say, if it's outside of those hash marks, the outside guy takes it. If it's inside of that hash marks, the inside guy takes it. Okay? So this is something that needs to be talked about before you go on the field. My suggestion, and I talked to Al about this morning to get his thoughts on it, because this is my suggestion. This does not come out of the manual, okay? My suggestion is, instead of designating either the field judge or the back judge, we designate the inside deep guy calls the ball. He calls if he's taking it, or else he tells the outside guy that he wants him to take it. Reason being is he's in the middle of the field. He's got a good vantage point of the trajectory of the ball, where it's going, to be able to ascertain if he should take it or if it would be on the outside guy's portion of the field. Any thoughts on that?
I think that's fair. Like, it keeps it simple.
Well, yeah, and I think it's better, and I'll just go back a step. I believe, without knowing this, the reason they haven't designated one to take control of the situation here is because these 6-person mechanics are somewhat designed based on 7-person mechanics, okay? And in the 7 system, there's no one signaling the ball because the field judge takes 95% of the punts. Only punts that are like with 3 to 5 yards from the sideline are taken by the outside guys. So that's really easy to judge. And therefore, a signal is not necessarily required. But in this situation, we're talking pretty much in the middle of the field. And so for this guy out here to know whether or not how close it is to being on the boundary line or whatever is kind of tricky. So I would suggest that we stay with our dynamic of one guy signaling to the other nice and quick so both guys know what's going on. And I believe the best person to do that is the guy that's inside. But I reiterate, this is not in the mechanics. This is something that needs to be talked about in the dressing room before you ever go on the field.
Part of the progression, Andrew, is that in the 5 official coverage, the back umpire in 5 has from the hash mark to his sideline. So that's where this diagram's come from. Like you and I talked about earlier, that inside deep guy is now moving, being progressed towards being the position of a field judge. And so each level is sort of progressing as they go along, whether it's coverage or mechanics.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my suggestion. Like I said, talk about this when you get to the field, when you get to the dressing room, just to make sure the 2 deep guys know what they are doing and they're doing the same thing. Okay. Now we'll get down here to, where am I? Page 41. Okay. Field goals. Okay. Now on the long field goal, it will look no different than what we have done in the past. Okay. Your 2 deep guys are underneath the post. Your line of scrimmage guys are on the line of scrimmage until the ball takes them away. Once the ball is kicked, then they move downfield. Referee is set up to be able to monitor roughing the holder or the kicker. And umpires watching the line of scrimmage. Okay. So the long field goals are no different. Now, if we scroll down here, we're almost done, folks. Your patience is very good. So what this depicts here is a missed field goal, okay? Red line, trajectory of the ball. Blue lines, movement of bodies. So same thing's true. My post, I stay. So if the ball is kicked away from you, the guy on the other post has to go back to protect the dead ball line and to position himself for potentially no yards, which is not likely on a field goal, but the dead ball line certainly is. And here shows where you're looking, your different zones. Okay. Short field goals, they are different than what we've done in the past. Referee lines up to make the call on the field goal being good or bad. Okay, that's no different. Depending upon the alignment of the kicker and holder, one of the sideline guys will have this responsibility. Okay, whoever is looking at the face of the holder, it is their responsibility. The deep guys are set up differently. Okay, they basically set up in here a little bit. Now this is out on the far hash mark, so this guy sets out pretty close to the sideline. They're about 10, 12 yards deep in the end zone. Concept being, they're close enough to be able to monitor a little bit what's going on in here for this guy, what's in here, okay? but they're also in position, if there is a miss, to be able to get back and monitor the dead ball line or a return on the kick. So after the kick goes, if it's a miss, these guys have to react quickly because there's not a lot of time because you're down quite close. Quite often it'll go out through the back of the end zone in this situation, but if it's a muffed kick, it won't. And so you have to move quite quick down here.
Any reason why there's nobody on the dead ball line in that alignment?
They just move back afterwards. What we've got here, Jim, is this is basically the template of 7
Without the field
persons
judge.
without the field judge.
Yeah.
And the field judge stands on the dead ball line.
I just wondering, it would seem more important to have somebody on the dead ball line.
Yeah.
Anyway, just an observation.
But like I say, they set up about 12 yards deep, so they don't have far to go to get back there. That's why they're not up tighter like we've done with one guy in the past.
Okay.
Now, what you're looking at here, they're just showing in this one here, your alignment as we looked at before, okay? Now here they show a missed kick. This is where it lands. Sideline guys, it just shows this guy moving back because this line becomes really important, right? Umpires on the goal line because this is the critical area. This guy will make sure that he's back far enough to rule on this if required. This deep outside official here should be looking at some blocking action. So that's the end of that, folks. Any questions? You've been listening to me for an hour and a half. You deserve a break or something. But are there any questions that you may have, or any questions that I've put in your mind, created, I should say?
I
Okay.
waited 7 seconds. Hold it. I waited 7 seconds. I didn't know if anybody else. Everything here is very progressive from one level to the other. I only have one beef with the whole document. And I sent Jim a chat message here, but he ignored me as normal. My only concern is that when in the 6-man going from the 10 yards in, we have both the referee and the umpire on the same side of the field, meaning on the same lateral side of the field.
Right.
Okay. In the 7 official alignment, which I know we're not talking about, that's the way it used to be. And about 2 or 3 years ago, we switched that.
Correct.
And in the 7 official now, the referee is on the narrow, the umpire's on the wide. I don't know why it's different in the 6.
Well, nor do I. Keep in mind that if we incorporate what we've always done here in the past, that we put our referee on the wide side of the field, it's not a factor because when they flop, the referee flops as well.
Yeah. No, it's just if
it's just in situations where we try to stay on the quarterback's arm that this comes up, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
The problem with this is if the play goes to the wide side, both the referee and umpire are going to have players most likely between them and the tackle that may cause holding on that opposite side of the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, as you mentioned, it's something very worthwhile in your pregame meeting between the referee and umpire to decide what you're going to do when you're at the 10-yard line going in.
Well, and even before that, like just in general for the game, make sure the referee and the umpire both know I'm working on the wide side of the field or I'm working on the quarterback's arm.
Yeah, I agree. But
Yeah.
when you get into that zone, you have,
becomes more critical.
I strongly believe you have to go back to the old school habit.
Yeah. Well, and I will say this, I know it's counter to what they have in the mechanics here, but it's been in our mechanics for the last 10, 12 years to be on the quarterback's arm. And here in New Brunswick, we've bucked that and stayed on the wide side of the field. And I would suggest we continue to do the same, because unless you're talking about AUS football, every other bit of football we do as a referee, we do it on the wide side of the field. And so you're more comfortable because that is a normal dynamic for you.
Yep.
And I would just suggest we stay with that, because it does not affect in any way the remainder of the crew. It's just the referee and umpire that shift.
I agree.
I disagree, but that's irrelevant.
Well, no, it isn't.
The other point is in this mechanic, the 6-man mechanic, we change 15 and in.
Yes.
Unless they've changed the 7-man, we change 10 and in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're correct. One's 15 and one's 10.
Yeah, this is 15 here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jim, you were saying that we should be on the throwing arm?
Well, I don't know. I think there's a reason they want the referee on throwing arm, right? Because he usually goes that way, and you got to start getting used to it sometime. And you might as well start doing it at 6-man. That's just my thought process on the whole thing. But I've never been a referee, nor am I going to be a referee.
Yes, you have. I saw you be a
I did
referee.
too.
Not
At
in
least two of
tackle
us could put our
football.
hands up to we saw you.
Well,
I-
this is just my opinion again, and I know it's worth very little. I believe the reason they have the referee on the quarterback's arm here is because, once again, this is for elite football. And in our 7-person system, you're on the quarterback's arm. So this is for continuity within that.
Yeah.
I believe is the reason why we're there.
And I'm neither one way or the other. You know that. I agree with Jim that in the manual, it says that you're on the throwing arm. Sometimes that can become confusing, but I do have an issue with at the 15 or the 10 going in and having the referee and the umpire on the same side of the line.
Yeah.
Because you do not officiate that left-hand side well, or the narrow side well.
Correct.
And that's why the 7 officials, they changed that.
Yeah, I agree.
My beef. I'm good.
I agree
Tell me
wholeheartedly.
what you want me to do, Kimosabi.
Be quiet, go home.
Good point.
Okay, I got one step done.
Anyone have any other questions or comments? So the only thing I'll add to it, and like I reiterated at the very first, those 2 documents that get sent out, they work hand in hand. And so not all the answers to any one question is necessarily in one or the other. Sometimes you need to cross-reference.